Good day, everyone. Again, this is Pastor Chuck right here in Victory Outreach, Cape Town. And we want to welcome you to our second segment of Breaking Barriers. And again, if you like this content and you're enjoying the teachings that are taking place, then you could go ahead and like the video there on the bottom of your screen and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. And again, the title of this series is entitled Breaking Barriers. Okay, and I've learned also in the ministry that not only are you responsible for your head or for the way you think or your mentality, but you're also, again, responsible for your hands and your productivity. See, every leader has learned to establish a healthy work ethic, a daily work ethic, a discipline of knocking things out, of being able to stay focused and knock things out. I've ran into some leaders and had even friends in the ministry that are great starters. They're very inspired. They get very excited about the new idea. But the ability to work with that idea and work daily on the small things to bring that idea to fulfillment are sometimes the challenge. And in order for us to break barriers within our church or within our ministry, we have to be able to break the barrier of our work ethic, of our productivity. I've heard one of our elders, Pastor Sonny Jr., say, a good leader has a healthy fruit trail. They've left a fruit trail. In other words, the areas of ministry that they've taken on throughout their journey in the ministry have always shown a certain level of effectiveness or success. I remember when I first started in the ministry of Victory Outreach, I started within the home. I came into the home. I was addicted to drugs, and there in that home, Jesus changed my life. And after I got a breakthrough in my life, I became the home director. And that was my first ministry. That was my first leadership opportunity. And as a home director, the first home that I went to was a home in Sacramento. And that home was only 3 people. And we didn't have a lot going on. But in that home, as I learned to get focused and I learned to start working with that particular area, it grew from 3 people to 8 people. Then we ended up purchasing a van, and we ended up having the things that were needed. Not only were there men coming into the home, but now men were graduating. They were being discipled. They were being assimilated into the church. They were finding their place in the church. I was growing as a leader. That was my capacity level. When I first went into that home, there was 3 men. When I left that home, there was 8 men with graduates. So there was a little bit of success that took place in that first area of ministry. Then I went to directing the home in Hayward. There was a bigger home of 40 men in the home, and I was able to get that home and work with that home and get that from one level to the next. Then I went to the Philippines, and there in the Philippines, not only did I oversee a home, but I took over the homes in the whole country. I was over the homes in the Philippines, and I overseen 6 different homes, and I was able to work with those 6 different homes and put things in place to bring those homes together and have discipleships and have different things. And then I went from having the breakthrough that we experienced in the Philippines, and I went to Indonesia, and I pioneered, and I went from the home to pastoring a church. And now I'm pioneering in Indonesia and pastoring the church, and not only having the home, but now having the different areas of ministry that are needed within the local church. And I'm in a Muslim country, and I'm working for the Lord, and I'm trying to be able to take not only working with the home, but now I'm working with the church, and I'm experiencing again a breakthrough right there in the Philippines. Indonesia. And then from Indonesia, God opened up the door for me to go to San Diego. And then I was for a season there in San Diego. And now I find myself here in South Africa. And so a healthy fruit trail of being able to go from one area of ministry, taking the ministry from one level to the next, then moving into the next chapter of your journey with the Lord, there should always be a fruit trail of success or effectiveness for a growing leader. And no one else is responsible for giving me or giving you or giving us that success except ourselves. So we're responsible for our mind, our head, and we're also responsible for our hands. The next thing that I believe is important, that as you're growing as a leader in your personal barriers, not only you're growing in your mentality, not only you're growing in your productivity, but you're also growing in your heart. Our head, our hands, our heart is very important for the leader to take personal responsibility of. When it comes to our heart, we must guard our hearts because we understand that there's ups and downs of ministry. There's disappointing times. There's the trying times, the times of not enough. There's all these different seasons that ministers experience, that leaders experience, and we have to make sure that we're guarding our heart. It's no one else's responsibility to to guard our heart. It is our responsibility to guard our heart. The Bible says to guard our hearts because out of it flow the issues of life. Ministry gets tough, and there's different times of testing that each and every one of us will go through. And it's very important that we do not allow the tests or the seasons that we experience get inside of our hearts and contaminate. And then we end up becoming a bitter leader or a negative leader or a pessimistic leader. We have to guard our hearts so that we stay fresh in the call of God. God is able to give us the grace. God is able to give us the breakthrough. And it is our responsibility to keep an intimate relationship with God where God's presence is able to safeguard our hearts so that we stay fresh in the calling that God has placed upon our lives. We're responsible for our minds, our head. We're responsible for our productivity, our hands, and we're also responsible for our heart. The last thing I think that is very important as leaders, as we're breaking personal barriers within our lives, is that we're also responsible for our hope. It is our responsibility to keep our faith alive, to keep the dream alive, to continue to look to the future that God has promised to us. It is no one's job to fan the flame. It is our job to keep that fire burning as we look to the future that God promised to us. See, I believe it is very important that we keep our faith fresh. Our faith. Our founder, our pastor, Pastor Sonny, is constantly telling us that if we're going to be able to be the leader or if we're going to be able to be the ministry that God has called us to be, we're going to have to be a people of faith. In the 60s, it was faith that Pastor Sonny had to go into East Los Angeles and begin to pioneer the ministry right there in the projects, and just a small group of people of drug addicts that were there in the very beginning stages. And God, because he believed God for the promise that God had given to him, and he was not dictated by what he's seen or what he was looking at, but he was dictated by the promise that God gave to him, and he moved according to the promise by faith. God was going to bring it to pass. And from the 60s all the way here we are, 52 going on 53 years later, and today we are the largest inner city ministry in the world. That happened, my friend, by faith. And as a leader, we must keep our faith alive. It's our responsibility to keep our faith alive. And so that is the first barrier that I wanted to look at here in this first segment, that we are responsible when it comes to breaking barriers. We're first of all responsible to our own barriers, our personal barriers. And those personal barriers can be connected to our head, the way we think, to our hands, the way we work, to our heart, how we protect our heart. Are we a pessimistic leader or are we an optimistic leader? Are we a dry leader or are we a passionate leader? All of that is the result of the way that we protect our heart. And fourthly, we must keep our faith alive. If God said he's going to do it, then God is going to do it. God bless you. If you love this, again, we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will have this next episodes coming up, and I'm going to be looking at the cultural barriers. Not only do we have to break the personal barriers within our church, but we also have to be able to break the cultural barriers within our church if we're going to keep on growing. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you enjoyed this segment. God bless you.